Tails the Fox, Sonic's #1 best friend, has had his highs and lows throughout the years, but throughout the lows, he's always stayed as one of the most popular Sonic characters in the series. I mean, the little guy has his own super form. What can I say, he's a pretty cool guy. And I guess y'all agree so too. In a recent poll asking who's next for the figure ranking, Tails won by a very decent margin. But y'all ask and y'all receive. If you're new to the series, I grab a Sonic character and see how many figures they have from different Master Toy partners, then going by the Master Toy partner, and ranking each figure. I don't include variants unless there's a decent change, or a good reason like the Reindeer Tails figure, but not like things like the Space Tails figure from Toy Island. So with that being said, let's start. First up we have the one and only Resource, considered for having the best Adventure era figures, has made a dang good Tails figure. Out of the rest in Wave 1 and 2, Tails resembles the artwork very well, which these figures are often compared to. The sculpt and the paint honestly looks very good. There's a decent amount of articulation. That's good enough for the time. And the accessories he comes with boost the ranking. I'm glad he comes with a sticker. The only problem I have with the figure is the noticeable neck, but other than that, an A-tier figure. Next up there's Toy Island. One of my favorite Master Toy partners. Didn't really have a good time making Tails figures. Starting with the Sonic Adventure Tails, he's a very wide boy. Let's start with the good, which is the accessories. He has a couple of rings, 2 Chaos Emeralds, his tails, and a freaking Chow! Okay, not a figure. Like I said, this guy is very wide. Tails just looks very chubby here for some reason. Despite the large proportions, the sculpt honestly isn't that bad. And the paint is pretty good too. It's just, why does he look like this? And that mouth. Ew. And it sucks that this is the main Tails figure they made. Since they re-released this guy in pretty much the whole Wave 1, way too many times. B tier. 10-inch Tails figure. Being released twice, once for the Adventure line, and second for the Sonic X line, with them both having one key difference. One of them doesn't talk, and I'll be talking about the Sonic X one because I actually have it. I love bringing up the fact that I have this guy, because he's pretty rare. Although he might look the same as a normal figure, this guy is actually thinner, which definitely makes this guy look more accurate. Although the face still looks a bit goofy, though I won't rank this one. Instead I'll rank the Adventure version, since it came with a stand and could talk. Fun fact on the Sonic X1, he still has a button on the foot. It doesn't work, but it's there. Just for that, I give this an A tier. The Tails Bendy figure, S tier. Although you might not agree with this opinion, I really think this is one of the best out of the line. I just think he's one of the more iconic figures. He's detailed really well for a small figure. The only complaint I have, and this goes for all the bendy figures, these guys can barely move. But anyway, I give these guys a solid A tier. Lastly for Toy Island, there's the Megabot Series 1, C tier. I don't really like this figure. Sure, it's the most accurate figure when compared to the art. He's not really cool or unique really, at least to me. Well, that's it for Toy Island. They had some interesting figures. Well, I guess it's time to look at the GOAT. Well, they used to be the GOAT. They're otherwise known as Jazwares. Considered the best Master Toy partner, or was. They're one of the most popular Sonic toy makers ever, which of course makes their Tails figures one of the most known. So we're gonna see if they're good at all. Let's find out. Tails Superposer, S tier easily. Not only does this guy look accurate, but this is one of the most articulated Tails figures ever, if you couldn't get that from the name. This isn't the first Tails Superposer. You're probably confused. Yes, Sonic and Shadow had ones for Toy Island, but they stopped at them, right? Well, they actually plan on making a Tails and even Knuckles. They never got out of the prototype stage, but they do exist. And I have to say they do look good on their own right. For what they were going off of, it is Sonic X, but just compared to Jazwares figures, I'm sorry, but this is just better. Sculpt, paint, articulation. This has to be one of the best 2010s Tails figures ever. So like I said, S tier. Hey, I just want to say this before I move on. I find it weird that Tails nor Knuckles got a 5-inch figure. Pretty weird to me at least. The 3-inch Tails figure. This is a tough one. It's one of the most infamous 3-inch figures. The looks are really good, and it's heavily articulated. Here's a fact. There's 2 releases of this guy originally. The first release didn't have articulated tails, with the second fixing that. There's only one thing that I'm not really a fan of, and that's the color. This guy for some reason is a very dark orange. I do think some figures are a little lighter. Even though it's a hard one to rank, I'm gonna have to say this is A tier. 3-inch classic Tails. This guy's a very good figure. In terms of 3-inch articulation, the classic figures don't have as much. There's no elbow or knee joints. I do think they could have added that somehow, but despite that, this is still a great figure. B tier. Last up, there's the Rider's Tails. This is way better than the normal Tails. For one, his design is really good, and he even comes with his board, with the original having nothing. And second, he has more accurate colors. I just think this is better. So that was Jazwares. I do think they improved from Toy Island. And I would say I'm excited to see what Tommy's gonna bring, but sadly it's not much. Tommy, the king of variants. barely made Tails figures. If you think about it, Tomy is the longest running Sonic toy maker ever. They started in 1992 with the 90s Sonic Tomy line, so they've been making Sonic toys for 32 years. That's crazy. And I'm going to include something that I didn't include in the Sonic ranking. The figurines. Yes, I know it's a figurine and not a figure. And if I include this, I should have included the other Jazzwares figurines. But hey, this is my list. Shut up. The figure is pretty good to be honest. Sure, the paint job is bad, but it's really good for one of the first Tails figures. If the eyes were fixed, I would have put this up more. But I'll go ahead and put this in the solid C tier. Now the moment we've all been waiting for. Hopefully. The Sonic Boom Tails figure. This looks... yeah. Where do I start? The skull for Tails is fine. The paint job is somewhat bad, and the articulation kills the figure from getting any higher than a C tier. I'm not even counting the variants, but I just want to show y'all them. Of course there's oily Tails. Do with that information as you will. This spacesuit Tails doesn't look that bad. It looks way better than the original. Too bad I can't include it. S tier. Classic Tails. A tier. This guy is just awesome. Although this can't compare to Jazzwares with the articulation, it can definitely be compared with the looks. And since this figure is really good, there's of course multiple variants. The 20th anniversary figure, it's metallic. The translucent figure, it's a light translucent orange. A black and white Tails, that's black and white. What's even the point of these? At least the base figure looks good. You know what doesn't look good? The next and last Tails figure for Tomy. The modern Tails figure. This is actually the worst Tails figure there ever was. Worse than any Jazzwares, worse than Resource, and even worse than Toy Island. This is genuinely the worst Tails figure I've ever seen, and it's of course because of the legs. This guy's torso is just gone. It's just legs. This just looks terrible. F tier. So yeah, that was Tomy. It wasn't good, it was just mid. The classic Tails figure is the only one I'd say that is really good, but sadly that's all I can say. At least Tomy's the best at making plushes. So now we have the last Master Toy partner, Jakks Pacific. If you think so or not, they've taken the crown for the best Sonic Master Toy partner, with Jazzwares stepping down, at least in my opinion. They've given us some decent plushes, and great figures with amazing character selection. We've gotten figures for characters who either only had one, or just never had a figure in the first place. And some of the new stuff they're putting out, I'm very impressed by Jakks. So can I say the same for the Tails figures? Let's see. Tails Bendy figure. Looking back on this looks incredible. He's very game accurate and the sculpt on this is just awesome. It being a bendy figure just helps the look of this guy. 2.5 inch modern Tails. B tier. He still looks pretty good here. And this is a really solid figure seeing that this is smaller than Jazzwares 3 inch figures. The only issue I'd say I have is the mouth. I wish they would have made it black instead of red. It does look a bit strange and cheap. I mean these are $5. But that little change could have done a lot. 2.5 inch Flying Tails figure. I know this is a variant figure, but I did include Sonic variants when looking at Jakks in the last video, so we're gonna keep on doing that. This is pretty much the same as the last figure, both and now having Tails in the flying motion. It's done pretty well and I like the blur effect it tries to do, so I'll give this a solid B tier. 2.5 inch classic Tails. I honestly think this is better than the Tomy version. This is one of the few figures I actually have, and speaking from first hand, this is a very impressive figure. He has a decent amount of movement that's very good for a $5 figure, and I would highly recommend. S tier. 2.5 inch Christmas classic Tails. S tier. I mean, do I need to say anything? Reindeer Tails. I find it interesting that companies have Tails dressed in a reindeer costume for merch. There's a Squishmallow and then there's this. But hey, I'm not complaining. This is a very heartwarming figure. Speaking of heartwarming, Easter Rabbit Tails. This is pretty much a repaint of the reindeer Tails, with it going blue to green, but now he has rabbit ears. I'll put both of these in S tier for being special little figures. 4 inch Tails figure. This guy is meh. I'm not really a fan of their 4 inch Tails figure. It's mostly the same as the bendable figure, just now with articulation points. I think it's the face. It looks kinda bad. There's barely any expression in the face. It honestly looks a bit creepy. Anyway, I'll give this a solid B tier. It's not that bad, there is some good in here. 4 inch classic Tails. This is genuinely the best classic Tails figure. This guy looks phenomenal. It's pretty much a 2.5 inch figure sized up, which of course is a good thing. I really like this figure. Hopefully it gets a single card release, instead of being limited to a 3-pack. S tier. Tails Collector's figure. Again S tier. This is the best modern Tails figure, but the accessories are really cool. I do wish there was more, but you can still do a lot with these, and I might have to find this figure. The articulation is pretty fine, although it's just a sized up 4 inch figure with elbow joints. So yeah, I'll give this an S tier. 4 inch Sonic Movie 2 Tails. I don't have the normal version of this figure, although I do have the variant where he has the flying hat on, so I'll rank this figure. Before I do that, I just want to mention the box. On the bottom it says Tails with Blaster, but this figure doesn't come with that, but the first figure does. Everything else about the box is fine, so is this an error? Or did I just so happen to get a used figure on Amazon that was advertised as new? Anyway, the figure. It looks fine. The sculpt and the paintwork is pretty good, but this figure has been outclassed in every form by one figure. B tier. 2.5 inch Sonic Movie 2 Tails. It's pretty much the same as the 4 inch figure, just now scaled down with less articulation. C tier. Sonic Movie 3 Tails. Automatic S tier. This guy. This figure. It's really outstanding. Where do I even start? This is movie Tails. That was Tails. But this is peak movie Tails. The levels of articulation this guy has is amazing. I can't put into words how good this figure is. This is just S tier. The tails can articulate. They're not molded together. Yeah, Sonic Prime Tails 9. This figure's pretty good. It's really accurate. And they didn't go cheap on the articulation. It's nice that they give him fully articulated tails for all of them. A tier. I'll group the three 2.5 inch figures, since they're virtually the same. They're all pretty good. Not much to say other than they look great. So I'll put these in B tier. And with that, this is the final tier list. If you enjoyed the video, then consider subscribing. It's free and helps a lot. I do want to say I'm planning on making a 2,000 subscriber Q&A video, so please leave any questions in the comments. So with that said, join the Discord, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.